Hi guys, Mr. White. So we're going to start a process this week of working on something called the DBQ. That stands for Document-Based Question. So we're going to be looking at documents to determine how people felt about certain things during the Civil War, specifically to answer one question. The question that we're trying to answer is, the Civil War, why did Texans fight? So we're going to be looking at documents that have to do with that subject, and then we're going to formulate our own opinion about what these documents say in regard to why the Texans fought in the war, and we're going to write our own essay about it. Now, the way this is going to work online, we have several questions, questionnaires, I guess, set up online, and you'll see links below the video for all of these things. So you're going to see several links. First off, you'll see one for the questions of the Civil War, Why Did Texans Fight, Part 1. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that one today. You will also see a link for something called the background essay, which you will need to read for this process. And if you have the ability to print it, I would suggest printing it just because I think that it would help you to be able to annotate it. I know we can annotate online as well, but I do think there's something good to have it tactile and be able to write on it and underline and highlight, that sort of thing. You should also see a link for Flipgrid. We're going to try to use Flipgrid to answer one of our questions today. And then later on this afternoon, about 4 o'clock, I'm going to try to do a Zoom meeting. So in case you have questions about this, we have the opportunity to bring those up directly to me instead of, me getting 152 emails every 30 seconds. You know what I mean? So we're going to work on that. So first off, what we need to know is these documents that we're looking at, what are they, and what do they say? Why are they important? So these are called primary documents. Primary documents are important in history because this is where we get our real information about what was going on at the time. Now I'm going to read you a definition of primary documents. The definition that I have says, they provide first-hand accounts of the events, practices, or conditions that you're researching. In general, these are documents that were created by the witnesses or first recorders of these events at about the time they occurred and include diaries, letters, reports, photographs, creative works, financial records, memos, and newspaper articles, just to name a few. So, if you take our current situation, if you're at home keeping a journal about what you're doing on a daily basis because of being quarantined at home and the situation in our country, then later on, when you have kids or grandkids or whatever out in the future, these people could read those diaries and they'd be reading primary sources instead of something where, maybe you told someone about what it was like and then they told someone about what you said. That would not be a primary source. Now, you would be the first source of that information, but there wouldn't be any document proving that this is actually what you said, that sort of thing. So primary documents are important, and we're going to look at several of those through this process. And this process is going to take us all this week and probably part of next week, so get ready. It's going to be a long haul exercise, and we're going to work hard on it. One of the things that you'll read about in your packet today, the online packet, is about Abraham Lincoln and Sam Houston. So one of the major issues of the Civil War was the idea of secession, that the southern states could just say, well, we don't want to be part of the United States anymore, so we're not going to be. Sam Houston thought that was a terrible idea, and Abraham Lincoln didn't even think it was legal. A lot of us have the impression that Abraham Lincoln, when he was elected president, he was very anti-slavery, and that's why the Civil War happened. And that's not exactly the situation. Abraham Lincoln was against the spread of slavery, because remember, at this time, we're talking about sectionalism. We're talking about keeping the balance of power in Washington, D.C. even. And so every time you added a free state, the slave states wanted to add another slave state so that the balance of power in Washington would be more equal. So what had happened was they were talking about, we want to be able to expand slavery, and Abraham Lincoln was very against that. And so when he was elected, the southern states said at that point, we're going to secede. So the question is that something that they should have been allowed to do, that are states generally allowed to leave the Union once they're part of the Union? Okay, and I'm looking for this reading from Abraham Lincoln here real quick. I'm not apparently as organized as I thought I would. Well, I don't know where it went. That's great. Awesome. Hang tight. Okay, here we go. Found it. So this says, as you know, Abraham Lincoln's main reason for going to war against the South in 1861 was to keep the United States in one piece. He strongly opposed secession. He believed that when individual states chose to join the Union, they were doing so forever. Not everybody agreed, especially in southern states like Texas. And so that leads us into the question of whether or not secession is something that should be allowed or is something legal to do. In your online packet that you'll be looking at, you're going to have 3 situations. And I want you to consider all 3, okay? But I want you to discuss one on Flipgrid with me. And I'm going to read it to you. You'll recognize it once you see it in your online packet. But here's the situation. In a 5-4 vote, the U.S. Congress, that's not even accurate. Congress can't do a 5-4 vote. They messed up. So we'll just read it, assume it's true. In a 5-4 vote, the U.S. Congress votes to repeal the Second Amendment to the Constitution, replacing it with an amendment that forbids the sale and possession of all firearms except old collector items. Texas and 10 other southern and western states do not ratify the amendment, but the amendment is approved by the necessary 3/4 majority. Some angry Texans go so far as to organize a secession convention. Would you support their cause? So you'll click on the link to Flipgrid, and just remember that the federal government in this scenario has said, okay, we're taking the Second Amendment out. You no longer have the right to purchase or own firearms unless there's some really antiquated, musket or something like that. You can't have even a semi-automatic handgun or anything like that, right? It's just out of the question. So the question for you is, would you support even the idea of a secession convention, which is just where they get together and talk about, should we secede? Let's vote to secede. If you want to secede, then you vote for it and all that kind of stuff. So the question is, where would you fall in that discussion? So go to Flipgrid and just answer that question, okay? I'm looking forward to hearing y'all's answers about that. Now, once you're done with that, what I would suggest then is just go ahead and read the background essay. Like I mentioned, that will also be a link in this particular post. And it says, at the top, it says background essay, the Civil War, why did Texans fight? And again, I would print this out if you have that capability so that you can highlight it or annotate in whatever way is best for you. But make sure that you're paying attention to the highlighted words. If you don't know what they mean, you're already on a computer, Google that sucker. Find out what the definition is. As I mentioned, at around 4 o'clock, well, not say around, at 4 o'clock, I'm going to get online with the Zoom meeting, and the link will also be in this post. So just go there, and if you have questions, then we'll address them at that time. Do not get overwhelmed by this, guys. Essentially, this entire thing is about looking at documents and formulating an educated opinion about what those documents convey to us today. Doesn't mean we have to agree with it, right? So I'm not saying, well, Texans fought because of X, Y, and Z, and so would I, right? I'm saying Texans fought because of X, Y, and Z, and at the time that seemed appropriate to them, whatever the case may be, okay? So again, if you have questions, let's try, if possible, if you need to email me or whatever, you can do that. But you can also wait until the Zoom meeting and we can talk about them in person. In the online document, just go through it one at a time and just answer the questions. Do it in complete sentences. Because at the end of the day, after we do all of this work, essentially what we will have is a completed essay. And all we have to do is take those parts that we've written, put them all together, and then we have an essay that answers our essential question of why did Texans fight? Okay? But that's not going to work unless we're actually answering each question in a long sentence or a long form sentence, right? No yes or no, no IDK, none of that stuff, okay? So again, if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you and your family are well, and I look forward to getting to see you guys someday, hopefully soon. Bye-bye, guys.